I like to tell students that, good design is the articulation of one significant thought. Having one thing that is actually reappearing in the piece each time as you walk around it. There's one identifying feature that ties it all together. And I think learning how to edit, to pull away everything from that initial sketch, initial design, or mock-up, or whatever it is, take everything away that isn't required. And it's a tough game. Well, the transition to furniture was right from leaving school. I went to trade school, 16, left school, high school, 16, went to trade school, 2-year program. And it was one of only 2 colleges in the country at the time, teaching furniture making, furniture design. And so I enrolled for a 2-year program just to learn the craft, and a bit of other design as well. And moved on straight from there to a 2-year apprenticeship. It was a bit of a hybrid shop, First of all, we had 4 old-timers in there. I call them old-timers, probably my age now, but there were seasoned makers, and there wasn't anything they couldn't do either. Yeah. I mean, it was a really basic shop, but they were wizards. I became, like an itinerant furniture maker. You're just moving from one workshop to the next. And I got a job with a company, and it was, the designer there was a guy called Robert Heritage. And I got to work with him every day, and I hadn't really sort of understood what the process of design and iteration and prototyping was all about. And he was really good. I mean, he just explained what he was doing, why he was making the changes. I didn't kind of really take it all in at the time, we were young. But that was my first experience at really understanding what design meant. I owe a lot to him as an inspiration. Eventually, I started working with another guy in the Dyson, started a business, and we started making design furniture. It can be a pretty precarious endeavor. The truth is, it's feast or famine. It's a very competitive business. Within 30-mile radius of the workshop that we ran, there were probably another 25 workshops that could do what we did. That environment is pretty intense. You do need to keep the workshop going. You've got 8 or 9 employees. There's a paycheck to deal with every month. That's a hungry animal. Yeah. And you have to fight and for work to feed that animal. You learn a lot, and the breadth of knowledge that you accumulate from that is it's a body of work. Skill and craft has to be at the very forefront of design, and the way we think about the things we make in the future, and not look at it as like on the trailing edge of nostalgia. It's a moving thing. It moves forward, and as we think about furniture and designing and making furniture, it's not a bad idea to shine the light forward rather than backwards. When we think about craft and design, or let's say craft and skill, okay, people's perception is to look backwards, right, to a bygone era of craft. What I find a lot in furniture making, not just in this country, but around the world, is that when people talk about fine craft and fine craft making, the go-to is a style and an era of design which is behind us, from 16th century, 18th, 19th century, 20th century, early 20th century work, which is, and Western. And I look at it differently. Skill and craft have been around for like millennia, right? So, and they've been the ways that people have put food on the table, fended for themselves, made things, existed. And, I consider skill and craft that happens at the CNC as much as it happens as a skilled carver. I see no distinction there. There's the eye of the maker involved. We look backwards to understand what a skill and craft can produce, and looking at that and looking forward to contemporary design and what people might want to buy. People your age and the next generation. What do they want to buy? What do they want in their home? And that's always important. Like William Morris, have nothing in your home that is neither useful or beautiful. And that target moves. Here, what I try to have people understand is, turn your work to your public. Don't design for designers, don't make for furniture makers. It's not about that. Design is like a language, right? And what do? You learn a language by mimicking people who speak the language, right? So as you get better at the language, you're able to articulate yourself more clearly. And good writers say the most profound things with the least number of words, right? So, it's just editing to create clarity. And design is like that. You work on your ideas to the point where you've left nothing there that is, is superfluous, or you edit it down to the thing that you want to say, what you want to describe. At every day of this 9 months, I've had the same conversation or conversations around design with these students. And you look around you, there's some good stuff here. And like I say, it's a team effort. It's not just me, but it's similar as stuck.
If you had any wisdom to impart to somebody who wants to make this their career path, what wisdom would you give them, or advice would you give them?
Be fearless. Just be bold, be fearless. There's nothing outside your reach. You were bold and fearless. There's and
hard-headed is another word for that.
You might say that, I couldn't possibly comment, but you do have to have some guts. You do have to have some drive about this, but don't be afraid of this. This is a very rewarding pursuit, and whether it's teaching, whether it's making, whether it's pursuing other types of art, it's such a broad world. It's just a broad subject, and then I suppose that's a long-winded way to give you an answer. Is that I think that's what I hope I've left here.
If you had any wisdom to give to a younger Alec, what would it be?
Oh, man. I don't think I should answer.
It's fine. Set that one aside.